I really enjoyed the first assignment reading of The Jungle Book. I have not previously read this book. I saw the movie a few times growing up, but I never got around to reading the book, and I kind of wish now, like looking back, that I did read the book as a child, because I think I would have appreciated it a little bit more. But either way, I really enjoyed reading this so far. Um, and my favorite chapter was Moagi's Brothers, the first chapter. Something about this chapter really drew me in to the book. The first thing I liked was the poem that the author used at the beginning of this chapter, the beginning of the whole book, and the end of this chapter. I just liked how it was kind of unique and something like you typically don't see. I thought that really drew the reader in and would particularly draw a child in to read it. I also like the last line of the poem that keep the jungle law. This like law, the word law reminded me of like rules, which it is like a set of rules that plays a huge part in the book and in this chapter, but that part reminded me of Alice in Wonderland and all like the rules and regulations that like imaginary world had and how like Alice doesn't understand them. It kind of reminds me of, like the rules that the animals have and how like they're all influenced by the tiger, but like it doesn't really make sense, a lot of them. Like some of them do, some of them don't, and they're kind of unfair to Milwaukee. And I just think that like reminds me a lot of Alice in Wonderland, and the character of Alice reminds me a lot of Milwaukee. That's just like one comparison I saw. I also liked how they refer to him as man's cub. I don't Something about that just makes sense to me cuz like they're animals and so he's a cub of man. And I think that's something like a child would really appreciate and be like, "Oh yeah, man's cub, like that totally makes sense." But to an adult it's like, "What? Like why would you refer to him as that?" I just thought that was kind of cool and kind of funny too. Another part I liked about this book was the transitions in it. So at the beginning, they start when he's like a baby and they just find him, and then they go, all of a sudden he's like 10 or 11. But the author puts in there, like, now it's 10 years later, a lot happened between then. It would take, books to film. I just thought that that makes sense for a child to see that and like read that because sometimes it's like hard for them, all of a sudden it's, 11 years later. And I thought that was really unique and it like spoke to the reader too. I just thought that was really just a nice touch on the book. And I can see why like the book appeals to a child just because of the language used and just like the rules and the things like man's cub. I just think like any child would appreciate this, and as an adult, I'm very excited to read the next section that I will probably finish tonight because I'm just so much into this book. And yeah,